The airport terminal buzzed with the chaos of 1,000 lives colliding, but for Evelyn Monroe, the world narrowed to the sharp sting of her own words. "Hurry up, Cripple," she muttered under her breath, glaring at the pilot limping ahead of her toward the gate. She didn't know why the sight of the cane irritated her so much. Maybe it was the delayed flight, or maybe it was just her frayed nerves after a brutal week. Evelyn, 32, was a rising star in corporate America, a marketing strategist who thrived on control. Her life was a series of calculated moves, perfect pitches, flawless presentations, and a wardrobe that screamed success. Today, though, her polished exterior was cracking. She was late for a critical meeting in Chicago, and this pilot, Lila Harper, according to the name tag, was moving too slowly for her liking. Evelyn's heels clicked impatiently as she trailed behind, her mind already racing to the deal she needed to close. The client, a major airline, was her ticket to a promotion, and she wasn't about to let a delayed flight ruin it. Lila, 28, felt the weight of Evelyn's words like a slap. She gripped her cane tighter, her jaw clenching as she navigated the crowded terminal. The injury, a shattered femur from a crash landing 2 years ago, had nearly ended her career, but she'd fought her way back to the cockpit. She didn't need pity, and she sure as hell didn't need insults from some high-heeled executive who thought the world revolved around her schedule. Lila glanced back, her green eyes locking onto Evelyn's for a split second. There was something in that gaze, anger, yes, but also a flicker of curiosity. Who was this woman, and why did her words cut so deep? The boarding call crackled over the intercom, and Evelyn pushed past Lila to claim her first-class seat. She didn't notice the pilot's steady hands adjusting her cap, or the quiet determination in her stride as she headed to the cockpit. To Evelyn, Lila was just an obstacle, a fleeting annoyance in her perfectly planned day. She settled into her seat, laptop open, already drafting emails to smooth over the delay. The plane rumbled to life, and as it climbed into the sky, Evelyn felt the familiar thrill of being untouchable, soaring above the mess of the world below. But life has a way of grounding even the most untouchable. Halfway through the flight, turbulence hit sharp, violent jolts that sent coffee cups crashing and passengers gasping. Evelyn's laptop slid to the floor, and her heart pounded as the plane dipped. Over the intercom, Lila's voice came through, calm and steady. "Folks, this is your captain. We're hitting some rough air, but I've got this. Stay seated and keep your belts on." Evelyn scoffed, muttering, "Sure, Captain Cripple's got this." She didn't know why she said it, maybe to feel in control again. But the words felt hollow the moment they left her lips. In the cockpit, Lila's hands were steady on the controls, her focus unbreakable despite the storm raging outside. She'd flown through worse both in the air and in life. Growing up in a small Ohio town, she'd hidden her truth for years, afraid of what it meant to be a lesbian in a place that didn't understand. The Air Force had been her escape, and flying had become her freedom. The crash had taken a piece of her, but not her spirit. She wasn't about to let a storm or a rude passenger shake her now. The plane landed safely in Chicago, and Evelyn barely noticed Lila as she disembarked, her mind already on the meeting. She strode into the airline's headquarters, confident and composed, ready to pitch her campaign. The boardroom was sleek, all glass and steel, and the executives listened intently as she laid out her vision. Bold, innovative, inclusive. She was in her element, every word polished, every gesture precise. Then the door opened and the room fell silent. Lila Harper walked in, no longer in her pilot's uniform but in a sharp blazer, her cane clicking softly against the floor. The airline CEO introduced her. "Lila Harper, our new director of operations." Evelyn's stomach dropped. The pilot she'd insulted was now her boss. Lila's eyes met hers, and that same flicker of curiosity was there, now laced with something else, authority, and maybe, just maybe, a challenge. Evelyn's world tilted. She'd spent years climbing the corporate ladder, always one step ahead, always in control. But now control was slipping through her fingers. Lila didn't acknowledge the incident in the terminal, but the weight of it hung between them. As the meeting progressed, Evelyn found herself hyper-aware of Lila's presence, her quiet confidence, the way her hands moved with purpose, the slight curve of her lips when she spoke. It was unsettling, and not just because of the power shift. There was something about Lila that Evelyn couldn't shake, something that made her pulse quicken in a way she didn't want to examine. After the meeting, Lila called Evelyn into her office. The space was sparse, with a single photo of a younger Lila in a flight suit, standing beside a fighter jet. "Sit," Lila said, her tone neutral but firm. Evelyn sat, her usual bravado faltering. "I heard what you said," Lila began, her voice low. "In the terminal. On the plane." Evelyn opened her mouth to apologize, but Lila raised a hand. "I don't need your excuses. I need your work to speak for itself. This airline's changing and I'm here to make sure it does. You're either on board or you're out." Evelyn nodded, her throat tight. She wasn't used to being called out, let alone by someone who radiated such quiet strength. As she left the office, she realized something unsettling. Lila Harper wasn't just her boss. She was someone who could unravel everything Evelyn thought she knew about herself. The Chicago skyline glittered outside the airline's headquarters, but inside Evelyn's office, the air felt stifling. She sat at her desk staring at her laptop, the cursor blinking mockingly on an unfinished campaign proposal. Lila's words from their meeting echoed in her mind. "You're either on board or you're out." It wasn't just a warning, it was a line drawn in the sand, and Evelyn wasn't sure which side she stood on. She'd always prided herself on her ability to read people, to charm them, to bend situations to her will. But Lila was different. She didn't respond to Evelyn's usual tactics, her polished smiles, her carefully crafted flattery. Instead, Lila watched her with those piercing green eyes, as if she could see through the facade Evelyn had spent years perfecting. It was infuriating. And yet, Evelyn couldn't stop thinking about her. The way Lila's voice had stayed calm during the turbulence, the way her cane didn't diminish her authority, but somehow amplified it. It was a contradiction Evelyn couldn't unravel. Over the next few weeks, their paths crossed constantly. Lila was everywhere, reviewing marketing plans, leading strategy sessions, even joining the team for late-night brainstorming over pizza. She was hands-on in a way Evelyn hadn't expected, her presence both commanding and disarming. During one meeting, Lila leaned over Evelyn's shoulder to point out a flaw in her data, her breath warm against Evelyn's ear. "You're better than this," Lila said softly, her tone more encouraging than critical. Evelyn's cheeks burned, and she hated herself for it. She wasn't supposed to feel this way, not about her boss, not about a woman. Evelyn had always kept her personal life tightly controlled. Relationships were distractions, and she'd never had time for them. Growing up in Atlanta, she'd watched her mother juggle 2 jobs while her father disappeared for months at a time. Love, to Evelyn, was a luxury she couldn't afford. She'd buried any curiosity about her own desires long ago, convincing herself that ambition was enough. But Lila was stirring something in her, something she didn't want to name. One evening, as the office emptied out, Evelyn found herself alone with Lila in the conference room. Papers were strewn across the table, remnants of a heated debate about the airline's new branding. Lila was studying a mock-up, her brow furrowed in concentration. Evelyn watched her, noticing the way her fingers traced the edge of the paper, the faint scar running along her knuckles. "You don't trust my ideas," Evelyn said, breaking the silence. It came out sharper than she intended. Lila looked up, her expression unreadable. "I trust talent," she said. "Yours is obvious. But you're holding back. Why?" The question caught Evelyn off guard. She wanted to snap back, to deflect, but something in Lila's gaze stopped her. It was like Lila saw her not the polished executive, but the woman beneath, the one who was terrified of losing control. "I don't hold back," Evelyn said, but her voice wavered. Lila stepped closer, her cane tapping softly against the floor. "You do," she said. "And I'm not here to play games. If you want to be part of this, show me who you really are." The air between them crackled, and for a moment, Evelyn thought Lila might say something more. But Lila just nodded and left, leaving Evelyn alone with her racing thoughts. The next day, Evelyn threw herself into her work, determined to prove Lila wrong. She reworked the campaign, infusing it with a boldness she hadn't dared before. It was risky, edgy ads featuring diverse faces, stories of passengers finding connection in the skies. When she presented it to the team, Lila's eyes lit up, a rare smile breaking through her usual reserve. "This," Lila said, tapping the proposal, "is what I'm talking about." Evelyn felt a surge of pride, but also something deep, a pull toward Lila that she couldn't ignore. That night, unable to sleep, Evelyn found herself Googling Lila Harper. She expected dry airline bios, maybe a LinkedIn profile. Instead, she found articles about the crash that had nearly killed her. A small cargo plane engine failure, a rural field in Nebraska. Lila had managed to land it, saving her co-pilot's life but shattering her leg in the process. The headlines called her a hero, but the comments were brutal, people questioning how a disabled pilot could still fly, others speculating about her personal life. One article mentioned her advocacy for LGBTQ+ inclusion in the aviation industry, and Evelyn's heart skipped. She shut her laptop, her mind a mess of guilt and curiosity. The next morning, Lila called a team meeting to discuss the campaign's rollout. Evelyn arrived early, determined to keep things professional. But as Lila spoke, her passion for the airline's future shining through, Evelyn felt that pull again. It wasn't just admiration. It was something raw, something that made her want to reach out and touch the scar on Lila's hand, to ask about the life behind it. She pushed the thought away, focusing on the numbers, the strategy, anything but the woman standing at the head of the table. By the end of the week, the campaign was approved, and the team celebrated at a rooftop bar overlooking Lake Michigan. Lila was there, laughing with the others, her cane resting against her chair. Evelyn watched from a distance, sipping her wine, her thoughts tangled. She'd spent her life running from vulnerability, but Lila made her want to stop running. And that scared her more than any boardroom ever could. The Chicago winter crept in, turning the city into a maze of icy streets and frosted windows. Evelyn's days blurred into a cycle of meetings, deadlines, and Lila's ever-present gaze. The campaign was gaining traction, with billboards popping up across the city and social media buzzing with praise. But success didn't quiet the tension between them. Every interaction with Lila felt like a tightrope walk, professional on the surface, but charged with something neither of them acknowledged. Evelyn threw herself into work, hoping it would drown out the questions she didn't want to face. She stayed late, tweaking ad copy, analyzing metrics, anything to keep her mind occupied. But Lila was always there, lingering in the office after hours, her presence a constant reminder of the line Evelyn was afraid to cross. One night, as snow fell outside, Lila found her hunched over a spreadsheet. "You're still here," Lila said, not a question but a statement. She leaned against the doorframe, her cane dangling from one hand. "So are you," Evelyn shot back, trying to sound casual. Lila smirked, stepping into the room. "I live for this place. What's your excuse?" The question hung in the air, and Evelyn felt her defenses wobble. She wanted to say something sharp to push Lila away, but instead she said, "I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to prove something." Lila's eyes softened, and for a moment, the room felt too small, too warm. "Prove it to me," Lila said, her voice low. "Not with numbers. With you." She didn't wait for a response, just turned and left, her cane's steady rhythm echoing down the hall. Evelyn sat frozen, her heart pounding. She'd spent her life building walls, but Lila was dismantling them with every word, every look. The next day, the airline hosted a gala to launch the campaign officially. The venue was a glittering hotel ballroom, filled with executives, influencers, and press. Evelyn wore a sleek black dress, her curls swept up, projecting confidence she didn't feel. Lila was there in a tailored suit, her cane polished to a gleam, moving through the crowd with effortless grace. Evelyn watched her, unable to look away. When their eyes met across the room, Lila raised her glass slightly, a silent toast. Evelyn's breath caught, and she hated how much it affected her. As the night wore on, Evelyn found herself cornered by a reporter asking about the campaign's inclusivity angle. She answered smoothly, but her eyes kept drifting to Lila, who was deep in conversation with the CEO. The reporter noticed. "You and Director Harper seem to work well together," he said, a knowing edge to his voice. Evelyn forced a smile, brushing it off, but the comment lingered. Did people see it? Did Lila? Later, as the crowd thinned, Evelyn stepped onto the balcony for air. The city sparkled below, but she felt unsteady, like the ground was shifting beneath her. Lila joined her, the cold air making her breath visible. "You did good tonight," Lila said, her voice softer than usual. "The campaign's a hit." Evelyn nodded, clutching the railing. "Thanks. But it's your vision, not mine." Lila laughed, a low, warm sound. "Don't sell yourself short, Evie." The nickname hit like a spark. No one called her that, not since her mother years ago. Evelyn turned, their faces close in the dim light. Why do you do that? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Push me like you know me? Lila's expression was unreadable, but her eyes were steady. Because I think you're worth knowing, she said. And I think you're scared of that. Evelyn wanted to argue, to run, but she couldn't move. Lila's hand brushed hers on the railing, a fleeting touch that sent a jolt through her. For a moment neither spoke, the city's hum fading into the background. Then Lila stepped back, her cane tapping as she returned to the party. Evelyn stayed outside, her heart racing, her mind a storm of fear and longing. The next week, Lila assigned Evelyn to lead a new project, a community outreach program tied to the airline's inclusivity goals. It meant working closely together, and Evelyn wasn't sure if it was a test or a gift. They spent late nights in Lila's office, poring over plans, their conversations slipping from work to personal. Lila talked about her Air Force days, the crash, the years of hiding who she was. Evelyn listened, drawn to her strength, her vulnerability. She wanted to share her own story, her lonely childhood, her fear of failing, but the words stayed locked inside. One night, as they worked, Lila reached for a file and winced, her hand going to her leg. You okay? Evelyn asked, her voice sharp with concern. Lila waved it off. Old injury. Acts up sometimes. Evelyn hesitated, then said, I read about the crash. You're a hero. Lila's laugh was bitter. Heroes don't get called cripple in airports. The word stung and Evelyn's guilt flared. I'm sorry, she said, meaning it. Lila looked at her long and hard. I know, she said finally. But don't apologize. Just be better. That moment shifted something in Evelyn. She started opening up, sharing bits of herself, her dreams, her fears. Lila listened, never judging, and Evelyn felt seen in a way she never had. But with every step closer, the fear grew. What was this feeling? And what would it cost her to find out? Spring arrived in Chicago, softening the city's edges with blooming trees and longer days. Evelyn and Lila's partnership deepened, their late-night work sessions becoming a ritual. The outreach program was thriving, with events celebrating diversity drawing crowds and praise. But beneath the success, Evelyn felt a growing unease. Her feelings for Lila were no longer a vague pull, they were sharp, undeniable, and terrifying. She tried to focus on work, but Lila was everywhere, in the way she laughed at a bad joke, the way her eyes crinkled when she was deep in thought. Evelyn caught herself staring, memorizing the curve of Lila's jaw, the way her hands moved when she spoke. It was dangerous, this attraction, and Evelyn knew it. She'd built her career on discipline, on keeping her personal life separate. But Lila was blurring those lines, and Evelyn wasn't sure she wanted to stop her. One afternoon, they visited a community center for an event, greeting families and handing out airline-branded swag. Lila was a natural, charming, kids and parents alike, her cane barely slowing her down. Evelyn watched her, a warmth spreading in her chest. When a young girl asked Lila about her cane, Lila knelt down, smiling. It's my battle scar, she said. Means I've been through some stuff, but I'm still here. The girl grinned and Evelyn's heart ached. She wanted to be that brave, that open. Later, as they packed up, Lila caught Evelyn staring. What? She asked, a teasing edge to her voice. Evelyn blushed, scrambling for an excuse. Just. You're good with people, she said. Lila raised an eyebrow. And you're not as tough as you think you are, Evie. The nickname again, soft and intimate. Evelyn looked away, her pulse racing. She wanted to say something to bridge the gap between them, but fear held her back. That night, they ended up at a diner near the office, sharing fries and coffee. Lila talked about her life after the crash, physical therapy, the fight to fly again, coming out to her family. They didn't get it at first, she said, stirring her coffee. But they came around. Took time. Evelyn listened, her own story bubbling up. I never had that, she admitted. My mom was always working. My dad. He wasn't around. I learned to keep things to myself. Lila's hand rested on the table, inches from hers. You don't have to anymore, she said softly. The words hung between them, heavy with possibility. Evelyn's fingers twitched, wanting to reach out, but she pulled back, standing abruptly. I should go, she said, her voice tight. Lila didn't push, just nodded, her eyes steady. As Evelyn walked home, the city lights blurring through unshed tears, she realized she was running again not from Lila, but from herself. The next day a crisis hit. A rival airline launched a smear campaign, digging up old articles about Lila's crash and questioning her leadership. Social media exploded, with trolls calling her unfit, disabled, a liability. Evelyn watched Lila handle it with grace, issuing a statement about resilience and inclusion, but she could see the toll it took. In a strategy meeting, Lila was quieter, her usual fire dimmed. Evelyn felt a surge of protectiveness, a need to fight for her. She stayed late, crafting a counter-campaign highlighting Lila's heroism, her vision for the airline, her strength. When she showed it to Lila, alone in her office, Lila's eyes glistened. "You didn't have to do this," she said, her voice rough. Evelyn stepped closer, her heart pounding. "Yes, I did," she said. "You're not just my boss. You're—" She stopped, the words too big, too raw. Lila's gaze held hers, searching, and for a moment, Evelyn thought she might close the distance. But the moment passed. Lila nodded, her expression guarded. "Thank you, Evie," she said, and the formality stung. Evelyn left, her chest tight, wondering if she'd missed her chance. Over the next few days, she threw herself into the counter-campaign, working with a ferocity she didn't know she had. The public response was overwhelming, support poured in, and the airline's stock soared. Lila was hailed as a trailblazer, but Evelyn felt no victory. She'd protected Lila's reputation, but she was losing the battle with her own heart. One evening, as they finalized the campaign's next phase, Lila asked Evelyn to stay. The office was quiet, the city glowing outside. "Why do you keep running?" Lila asked, her voice gentle but firm. Evelyn froze, her defenses crumbling. "I'm not," she lied, but Lila stepped closer, her cane steadying her. "You are," she said. "And I'm not going anywhere until you tell me why." Evelyn's breath hitched, her eyes locked on Lila's. The truth was there, screaming to be let out, but admitting it meant changing everything. Evelyn stood in Lila's office, the weight of her unspoken truth pressing against her chest. The city lights cast a soft glow through the window, but the air between them was electric, heavy with everything unsaid. Lila's question, "Why do you keep running?" hung in the silence, demanding an answer Evelyn wasn't sure she could give. "I don't know how to do this," Evelyn finally said, her voice breaking. "I've spent my whole life building walls, keeping people out. You make me want to tear them down, and that scares me." Lila's eyes softened, but she didn't speak, giving Evelyn the space to unravel. "I called you that word in the airport," Evelyn continued, her voice trembling. "I was angry, stressed, but that's not an excuse. I hurt you and I've been trying to make up for it ever since, but it's more than that. You make me feel things I don't understand." Lila stepped closer, her cane tapping softly. "Evie," she said, her voice steady, "you don't have to understand it all at once. You just have to be honest." Evelyn's breath caught, her eyes searching Lila's. The distance between them felt like a chasm, but also like nothing at all. She took a shaky step forward, her hand reaching for Lila's. Their fingers brushed and the world seemed to pause. "I'm scared," Evelyn whispered. I don't know what this means for me." Lila's hand closed around hers, warm and sure. "It means you're human," she said. "It means you're allowed to feel, to want to be." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, and before she could stop herself, she closed the gap, her lips finding Lila's in a kiss that was tentative, then desperate, like a dam breaking. The kiss was everything, soft, fierce, a collision of fear and longing. Lila's hand cupped Evelyn's face, her thumb brushing away a tear. When they pulled back, Evelyn laughed, a shaky, disbelieving sound. "I didn't know I could feel like this," she said. Lila smiled, her eyes bright. "Welcome to the club," she teased, but there was a tenderness there that made Evelyn's heart ache. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Evelyn and Lila navigated their new reality with caution, keeping things professional at work but stealing moments outside, coffee dates, walks along Lake Michigan, quiet nights in Lila's apartment. Evelyn was learning herself anew, embracing the parts she'd buried for years. Lila was patient, never pushing but always there, her strength a constant anchor. But the world wasn't as kind. Rumors started swirling, whispers about their relationship, questions about favoritism. The same trolls who'd attacked Lila's disability now targeted her personal life, and Evelyn's name got dragged into it. One morning, a tabloid ran a story with a grainy photo of them holding hands outside a cafe. The headline screamed, "Airline exec scandalous affair with disabled pilot boss." Evelyn's stomach churned, but Lila just laughed, tossing the paper aside. "Let them talk," she said. "They don't get to define us." Still, the pressure mounted. The airline's board called a meeting, citing concerns about their relationship. Evelyn was ready to fight, but Lila took her hand, grounding her. "We'll face it together," she said. In the boardroom, Lila was unflinching, her voice steady as she addressed the executives. "My personal life doesn't change my ability to lead," she said. "And Evelyn's work speaks for itself. If you have a problem with us, that's your problem, not ours." Evelyn's heart swelled, and she added her own voice, outlining their contributions to the airline's success. The board backed down, but the message was clear. They were under scrutiny. That night at Lila's apartment, Evelyn broke down. "What if this ruins everything?" she asked, her voice raw. Lila pulled her close, her arms steady despite the cane leaning against the couch. "It won't," she said. "We're stronger than that." Evelyn looked into her eyes, seeing the woman who'd survived a crash, who'd fought to fly again, who'd built a life on her own terms. And she knew Lila was right. Months later, the airline's annual conference was held in New York, a celebration of their record-breaking year. Evelyn and Lila stood side by side, presenting their vision for the Futurian airline that welcomed everyone, no matter who they were or who they loved. The crowd roared with applause, and Evelyn felt a weight lift. She'd found her place, not just in her career, but in her heart. As they stepped off the stage, Lila took her hand, their fingers intertwining. "You okay, Evie?" she asked, her voice soft. Evelyn smiled, her heart full. "More than okay," she said. "I'm home." The journey hadn't been easy. Mistakes, fear, and prejudice had tested them, but they'd emerged stronger together. And in that moment, Evelyn knew that no insult, no storm could ever break what they'd built. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.